Okay, so I lost all of the sketch footage for the Red Fox character. Hopefully we found a way for my computer to stop losing footage. It looks like we did. There are 2 sketch layers with each drawing, and I made a bunch of doodles to warm up this time, which really helped. The warm-ups made the sketching go easier. Hey, this is the Cat's Library. I'm the librarian. So after Mermaid, I decided to try spending a bunch of time drawing something as good as I could make it. It's been about a year since that cheetah video, which got a lot of views, and I wanted to try again with a different mammal since the Triceratops video did very average for this channel. Engage speed paint. With the gray fox here, the sketch recording did save, and so I'm going to show the speed paint for her first. There were originally going to be 4 foxes in this video, and I drew up to the second sketch layer on each of the 4 foxes. I drew each sketch layer of the 4 foxes one after the other before I moved on to the line art. At around the line art section, I realized that this was probably going to run long, especially since I decided to practice drawing each individual character 4 times. So I decided to put Arctic and Fennec in part 2. I'll probably still make that part 2, even if this video doesn't do well for whatever reason. The fact that Arctic Fox was originally going to be in here is why I decided to base the drawings off of the seasons, since an Arctic fox changes color in the winter compared to the summer. With each individual drawing, I was practicing consistency in different angles, different sorts of poses, and different seasonally appropriate outfits. When it came to consistency, I used the sketch that I'd already made of the red fox, whom my friend named Percival, to test the proportions of the gray fox, whom my friend named Jenny. I had 2 of Jenny's poses lying down and 2 standing up. I was trying to have all of the drawings be the same size as each other, and also all fit on the page together. This had been slightly easier with Percival because I hadn't decided on a size, and so if something didn't fit, I could shrink everything down. But with Jenny, I was measuring her size against Percival, and this is how big I wanted her to be. This is partially how Jenny ended up to be the only character who had an action pose, since the negative space between fall and summer felt like it needed a jogging pose to be balanced. One of the things I was really paying attention to was the negative space in both the individual drawings and the space between the drawings. I tried to give her a circle shape language with a bit of a square in there, in contrast to Percival, who was all triangles. I tried to give her a body type I don't usually draw, and I think it turned out pretty well. You can see it the best in the summer and fall drawings. The winter one you can also see it fairly well. In the spring one, I put most of my effort into the flowy dress and the pose. I think I put the most iteration into the spring pose out of any of the Jenny poses. The way I changed it was from her being awake on the bank of a body of water to being asleep next to it. I think that the Jenny spring drawing is my favorite of the video, and it just gets better with the line art and again with the color. I did Percival's line art before Jenny, but decided to separate them into their own sections instead of showing stuff chronologically. At the very beginning of the process, I used the scaled up version of my canvas. I set my brush size to 5 for the first pass, and then set it to 10 for areas with the shadows and areas when I need to make the depth clear. With fall here, I was trying to make the shapes even more rounded. I think that the hands in the fall drawing turned out the best on the sheet. I had a similar sort of hand on red sheet where I figured out how to make the thumb and forefinger in the foreground and the other fingers more in the background. I made sure that her calves were even. I added detail to the shoes to try to clarify that they are Mary Jane's. I did, however, forget to add buckles. One of the main differences between red foxes and gray foxes is that gray foxes have smaller ears and snouts. That helped with making her design more feminine. I also added a tuft of fur to the top of her head. She has fluff around her face that I tried to make look like a bob haircut, but also cheek fur. Animal people with hair tend to look weird, but hair is a huge part of female character design. Now, this is most likely the part of the process that I should have looked up a reference for, which is the flowers. But if they look fine from a distance, then they look fine, so we'll just learn to live with it. The ear flower turned out pretty good. The lei doesn't overlap quite right, and I drew all the flowers at the same angle. I have no idea if the legs look natural at this angle. I sort of turned my brain off for these shoes and have no idea what I was doing here. There's a lot of complicated overlapping of the limbs in this drawing because there are the two legs, one closer than the other. The tail wraps around behind the legs, but the tail tip comes in front of the elbow. This is why I really needed to pay attention to the negative space. The winter drawing is the only head that's not in a front-on or 3/4 view. I'm not sure how well this maintained her likeness, especially since I added a hat. The hat and scarf are supposed to match and both be knit fabric. I realized that I made the hands too big in the sketch and shrunk them down to a reasonable size for the line art. I momentarily forgot that they were supposed to be mittens and accidentally did things the hard way. I think that I accidentally made her tail less dynamic than it was in the sketch. This one came together much better when I added the colors, while the pose and the line art are just slightly off, and I'm not good enough at drawing to know why I feel that way. With the spring drawing, I drew the hand earlier in the process than I usually do since I usually start with the head. The hand turned out really good looking back. I'm probably hitting a breakthrough with drawing hands. Getting the fur to react to being pressed against her arm and the ground could use some work. I'm not sure if her face is on model. The hand closer to the camera is a little bit blockier than the other hand, but it still looks pretty anatomically okay. I added more strategically placed wrinkles to the dress instead of the scribbles. I drew that dress from memory and was thinking of a chemise dress, though this does look a bit more like the chemise nightgown than the robe and chemise, or however that's pronounced, which is apparently the kind that I was thinking of, and also a little bit of whatever Snow White was wearing in the original 30s movie. Most of my fashion knowledge is from videos breaking down historical art pieces and Disney Princess Designs versus History videos. Don't get used to me knowing what I'm talking about when it comes to clothes. I put a very bright saturated background so that when I paint bucketed in the flat colors, I could more easily see any gaps. There were lots of holes in my line art that I had to patch up on the color layer, and so that the color would actually stay in the lines. I decided to put in the highlights and shadows on before the color this time. I used the same color layers and opacities as I did on Percival's, since I did his coloring and shading first, as I did with every other step of the process with these two. I made all of her fur coloring first. I decided on the patterning with the fall drawing. I was looking up a reference since I don't think I've ever drawn a gray fox before. I had some trouble with the legs since with the reference that I was looking at there was more of a splotch pattern, and I didn't want to make the design too complicated. The colors that I added were a whitish color, a light orange, a blackish gray, and a dark gray. Of course, there was also the base color. I wanted a nice mix of warm and cool colors that all mixed together well. I have the feeling that after I have all of the foxes together, then her fur pattern is going to be the most complicated. I think that if you just look at her, especially when I get to the coloring the clothes, then her fur doesn't look too complicated and busy. She has green eyes and I made them pretty dark since that would stand out better against her mid-tone face. For that, I started out giving her a shirt that's the same color. I ended up with this green, yellow, and pink scheme, which I hated, and so I adjusted until I got something that I liked. Then I ended up with this magenta, teal, and orange palette, which I felt was oddly familiar until much later on I realized that these were the colors of a couple of my fairly old OCs. I don't know where to find the file of them, but you'll just have to trust me, I guess. I decided she was the sort of person who had a consistent color palette for all of her outfits, and I tried to have a different main color for each outfit and gradients to add interest. Looking back, these colors are all pretty bright and loud in a way that might not fit the character's personality. I might go back and desaturate them a bit after I'm done writing the script. I also went in and added a fur highlight layer since she was looking pretty flat without it. When it came to the Red Fox Percival, I lost the sketch layer. I do have the line art and coloring, but I just explained my process for that with Jenny there, and I'm bored of talking about drawing. I don't really have a story in mind for these guys, though. I was thinking that they're both sort of rich and that they were dating each other. I was also thinking that they were both insanely boring. So let's see what I came up with. Jenny is 19 and she is an amateur model. Sometimes she models for art students and she has gotten a couple of commercials. Percival took a random art class even though he's a business major, which is how they met. Jenny doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She doesn't even know if she wants to get married. Basically, she's trying to find herself on what she wants to do, and she also wants to go to Paris at some point. She is an avid jogger, and she either goes for a run outside or on the treadmill every morning at 5 o'clock. She likes all the colors and gets decision paralysis, and so chose 3 colors that she would wear for the rest of her life. Her closet has a wide variety of different styles and types of clothes, and so limiting the color palette was only mildly helpful. However, going through her wardrobe the first time was so unbelievably taxing that she couldn't find the energy to have a second pass and kept putting it off. She likes smoothies, tofu, quinoa, sprouts, strawberries, sushi, chai tea, green tea, herbal tea, and any tea that's not caffeine actually. She's a pescatarian. She doesn't like chocolate of any kind and the majority of desserts. As I said, she's very boring. I think that maybe the plot that these characters are a part of is more fantastical or high stakes. Like maybe there's an alien apocalypse where the aliens are humans, and Jenny got a special document from her grandfather. Her grandfather was a paranormal investigator who saved the life of a human spaceship captain who was the son of the human president at the time. After saving this guy's life 50 years ago, he got a document from the captain, electronically signed by the president, that the humans promised to never attack their planet. The humans were sort of on a development spree, where they would invade different planets. 50 years later, there was a new human president who conveniently forgot about this deal that was on the books and had begun taking over areas that the animalesques didn't care about as much, like the rainforest, certain uninhabitable deserts, the poles of the planet, tens of thousands of feet under the water, and Chicago. Chicago is spelled like this. Everyone knew about this, but no one knew what to do about it. And so that led to Jenny and Percival trying to bring the documentation to someone who could actually help. This goal would lead more into the other two characters, who I think would be spies. I think that Jenny's arc is classic she's just a girl syndrome. She tends to put herself in support roles in her relationships, but ended up in a situation where she needs to be a leader. She needs to be a leader because the pro-human party and a sect of the humans sends henchmen out to stop them. So the structure of the story would be more of a group adventure, team against the world, trying to find someone who'll actually listen and respect the promise to leave their planet alone. When half of both sides want war, and the other half want the humans to take over peacefully with no middle ground. After she and Percival are attacked for the first time by human spies and subsequently rescued by Fennec and Arctic, something awakens in Jenny that she doesn't want anyone to get hurt either by the war or from being subjugated, and that she will not let either of those things happen. I think that one of the attackers broke Percival's wrist or something, which leads to Jenny going into a bit of a blind rage for a moment. She pushed an assailant into a fountain in the college courtyard in the scuffle. Despite her goal being peace and pacifism, she was completely fine with her animalistic, wrathful tendencies. She was mildly worried with how okay with this she was, but that's not the same thing. Arctic and Fennec were both concerned about this to differing degrees. Arctic for the possible danger to the mission, Fennec because he was sort of scared of Jenny. Percival had seen glimpses of this before and was even more attracted to her because of this outburst. Figuring out how to channel her passion into productive means is the other half of her arc, along with coming into her own as a leader. On Percival's side of the story, he's a business major. He wants to do a good job running his parents' company when he inherits it. They manufacture and sell pens and pencils. He likes puns which are related to what he's doing at the moment. If he's in an art class, he makes art puns. If he's in a business class, he makes business puns. He is 20 years old. Penny got him into that vegetarian-pescatarian lifestyle, except he has hamburgers when she's not looking. I'm going to say that there are normal animals and then sapient animal people in this world. Percival doesn't have a favorite food. Friends and family have tried giving him more and more obscure foods in order to garner any sort of reaction out of him, but all food is pretty much the same to him. 5-alarm chili, cicadas, frozen dinners, salads, burgers. As long as he doesn't get sick, he'll eat anything, while also not feeling particularly strongly about what he's eating. He also jogs, but he doesn't do it when it's raining. What he really likes is swimming. He has a mild interest in marine biology and likes snorkeling, partially because he's never gotten scuba certified. Again, I can see it in these guys' eyes. They're very boring. I tried to make Percival a different kind of boring than Jenny. I keep saying that they're boring because I wanted to challenge myself to write that archetype of character while still making these characters appealing. This isn't really writing, it's just listing a bunch of facts and giving some vague ideas for plot and character arcs, but you get what I mean. In a plot sense, Percival is ridiculously bad at fighting. He can't lie to people to get out of trouble either. I think he's used to telling Jenny what to do a little bit because she's sort of indecisive, and so once she starts her character arc, he gets a little lost because what's she going to do when she realizes she doesn't need him anymore? Jenny is learning about skills that she didn't know that she had, formulating plans, managing people, being a peacemaker, a tenacity that intimidated trade assassins. Percival just kept learning more and more what he couldn't do. He half-heartedly tried to find his niche in the team while also supporting his girlfriend, even though he was secretly insanely jealous of her. He didn't like feeling jealous. It made him feel like he was a bad person or anti-feminist or something, even though he never acted on these feelings. Eventually, he decided to quietly go back home. He checked out of the hotel he was staying at and almost immediately got kidnapped by the human embassy that the team was staking out. This was the second or so mission. In the pilot part 2, it was explained that there was corruption in the animalesque government, and so they needed to make the negotiation themselves. You understand. So Percival ended up in a hostage situation, but he ended up becoming immediate friends with the guy who was supposed to be interrogating him. They ended up playing that game where they tried to find a food that Percival had a strong reaction to, and the guard revealed that the leader of the North Pole colony was the granddaughter of the captain that Jenny's grandfather had saved way back when. Of course, the guard didn't know the history with the animalesque. All he knew was that there was a starship captain who was the son of President so-and-so, and Percival just recognized the names because he was fantastic at names. The rest of the team rescued him. Jenny apologized even though she hadn't done anything wrong, and Percival told her that she hadn't done anything wrong. He opened up about his insecurities, and Arctic was all, "Indeed, your contributions to this team may require improvement." Fennec elbowed her in the side. But you provide ample morale. Mascot is an essential role." Fennec and Jenny glared at her. "What? I'm trying to be supportive." Percival laughed. It's okay. After that, everyone resolved to figure out what Percival's role was. His arc was about figuring out his role and becoming comfortable with his own negative emotions without letting them control him. And that's it for today. I have a good deal of drawing done for Arctic and Fennec, so I'll probably have that video out in about a week. Though I don't want to make any set deadlines because I will probably break them. I do need to get that video out before August, though, because I'm gonna try to do some August. I'll see you when I see you. Bye!